Well, it's another balmy day up north in Cairns in the beaches. It's a Thursday, a little blowy. Got a major renovation item off the agenda yesterday, so that was good. I haven't reported in for about a week. There hasn't really been much happening, to be quite frank, so bit of a quiet time of the year for me. I got the front gate fixed. Finally there's a lock on it rather than the latch, so I went from latch to lock. Cost me $280 to get the handyman to do it. He didn't tell me how much the actual lock itself costs, but it's quite a large lock, gate lock, so reasonably solid looking thing, and just happy to have it done. So now I can actually securely lock the front gate. There's also a few rungs that are dropped off the actual gate that allowed me to put my hand over to actually get the latch. I don't need that now, so he's actually hammered them back in place, so it looks a lot better aesthetically as well as providing an added layer of security and just a more convenient setup than what I had previously. So that's good news to get that out of the way. There's a number of things I have to get done in the house. There's a more immediate need. There's a bit of a swamp that's formed in the front of my house, in the just behind where or in between the lemon tree and the berry, the Panama berry. It's actually swampy grass at the moment, a little patch there. I think what might have happened is when I had that palm tree removed, maybe the roots were connected to a water line that the mains of the water is actually over to the right of that plant, and I'm just wondering whether it's dislodged or moved the actual pipe, water pipe, which goes to the outside. There's a tap outside just there, and I'm wondering if it's been moved and there's a little bit of leakage taking place. It's just constantly wet now. So unfortunately I might have to get a plumber in if that's the case. If I do that, I wonder whether maybe I should get some of there's some taps I wouldn't mind replacing, and maybe getting a new vanity unit in. It might be a good opportunity to do both. If I get a plumber and they can do both, so at least if I've got the house call, I've got to get the other stuff done as well. The other big thing is regarding the trip, and this is a personal thing. I've got the biggest story with the COVID, of course, the Omicron variant. Of course, I want to mention that, but before I do, just about my personal situation with the trip. I'm still not 100% sure I'm going to go, but I did bite the bullet last Friday, and I walked across to the Trinity Beach post office and bought myself a couple of registered mail envelopes, filled the main one out, and put in my passport. Also put $60 cash there because for some reason the Thais won't accept credit card payment for the visa, so I just decided to surreptitiously insert my $60 cash inside the passport. They do have a passport tracking, and I checked it out today with my passport number on the Thai embassy in Canberra, and it just came up with an error message. So either that means they haven't received my passport, or their system's down, or I put in the incorrect number. But I double checked that, it's definitely the right number because I've got a photocopy of the passport, and I've definitely got the right number. So I also checked the tracking of the registered mail yesterday, and it said I should expect delivery today or tomorrow, and I'd have to sign for it, otherwise pick it up from the post office. Now it sounds to me as if, going on the wording of that the Thai embassy has already issued me with the visa that I requested, and they've returned the passport. But I don't know, I'm not sure, it's ambiguous. It may still mean that they haven't received it yet, which is likely considering them in Cairns, although registered mail should get there pretty quickly. I would have thought within 24, 48 hours, but I'm only guessing on that one. But it could be on its return journey to me, which would be amazing if that's the case, if it only takes a week for a whole turnaround. But I'm not holding my breath on that one. So I have committed to getting that visa. So I'll pay the extra a little over $70, because the registered mail envelopes came to about, I think about $11 all up, and then I had to pay for a photocopy of my passport. Should have got that done at Officeworks, but I wasn't thinking, because they charged 90 cents, so pretty pricey for that stuff at Australia Post. Anyway, it's all done now, all the paperwork's in there with them. It should be okay. I've provided everything they've asked for. I went through the checklist. But you've got to go through the same crap when you actually go to Thailand as well. You've got to have a stack of paperwork to prove that you've got insurance, to prove that you've been vaccinated, to prove that you've done the Thailand pass, and that you've had your PCR test done prior to leaving the country. Although you have to do that anyway. They won't put you on board the plane unless you've done it. You have to give them proof in any case. So that's fairly foolproof, but there's a whole lot of stuff you've got to do. And speaking of that too, I saw a video on the new railway service they have between Vientiane, which is the capital of Laos, and Luang Prabang, which is a World Heritage List city. It's a beautiful city up the north of the country. Laos has got this big mountain range going right down the centre of it, and they've actually just completed building a fast rail connection between Vientiane and Luang Prabang, and it's supposed to take about 1.5 hours to get from point A to point B. There's been a fair few teething problems with the service. It just came into operation about a week ago, and I saw a video that was done by a guy from Newcastle, who I think he has an Asian wife. I'm not sure whether she's Laotian or not, but they went there anyway, and there were a few teething problems getting tickets and the opening hours of the place. There's a number of issues there. They were told by their hotel that to turn up after 2 p.m. to get to buy tickets at the railway station, which is a fair way out of town in Luang Prabang, when they wanted to return back to Vientiane. And the actual ticket office had actually opened at around midday and was stayed open till about 1:30, so they had total misinformation from the hotel they were staying at. And there was also a lot of other commuters who obviously got exactly the same message. Consequently, they had to just wait around at that place for about 2 to 3 hours, because the people who run the railway had closed this huge railway station. So there was nowhere to sit, there was no toilet facilities, nothing. They couldn't get anything to drink, there was no vendors nearby. This is just a place in the middle of nowhere. It was basically a car park and a big railway station, and they just hadn't thought it through. And there was no way they could purchase the tickets online. They had to go to the station to do that, and they were given the wrong information about the opening times for the ticket office. Why a big railway station closes during the day is beyond me. It's just cost cutting, presumably. They're also way over the top with the COVID testing. Got people in the foot to toe hazmat outfits, making sure that they are not COVID positive, presumably checking their temperatures and whatever. Just right over the top. This is a railway that goes within the same country, and they're doing all these ridiculous tests. Just, to me, it's absurd. But I think it's rather interesting that now getting on to that other business about the main topic of that, what's happening with coronavirus in Australia. Now that the latest press is going crazy over the number of cases of the new corona strain that's popped up in New South Wales and Victoria. They're talking again about cases, not hospitalisations and not deaths, which are the more salient numbers. I think one of the things that just proves the priorities of the press is this screenshot that I've got from Daily Mail. If you look at it, you can see the priority in visual form. They've got a huge headline about the number of cases spiking in New South Wales, and below that they've got an article which totally contradicts the hysteria of the big article, saying that Australia is doing brilliantly on COVID when it comes to deaths. There's a graph where it's just going down, 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 and calling Australia a miracle country because we don't have any deaths from COVID. And the Omicron, whatever, I think it's Omicron strain, apparently there's only been one death, and that's in the UK. One death for the whole strain with all the cases it's created. We've got to get real here. Look at what the real situation is. Australians are so scared these days, not just Australians, anybody in the West actually is just scared because of the way that the media has hyped this right up beyond recognition, showing no responsibility whatsoever. All they care about is getting clicks or numbers of newspapers sold, which aren't that many these days anyway. It's a dying industry. But basically they're just going out of their way to get eyeball recognition. And I think it's pretty disgusting personally. It only makes life harder for me when I want to travel, of course. It's going to be, because the Thais are, if not more susceptible than most, to this sort of hysteria. And they're going to clamp down more. They've already done that ridiculous U-turn when it came to, they were scrapping PCR tests on arrival and just going to have an antigen test, which is a lot faster, a lot cheaper, and means you don't have to quarantine for one night. But they reversed their decision a day or two after they denounced it because of the Omicron outbreaks. Just absurd. I mean, time will tell. Things could turn nasty with that strain, but at this stage it's looking fairly benign. As a matter of fact, it's looking like the perfect way of providing immunity in the community with herd immunity without causing death, and that's exactly what you want. But oh well, what can you say? But anyway, that's basically the situation. I did have some good news with my plants. I was getting very frustrated with my ginger bulb that I actually planted. There was getting no life out of it, no sprouts whatsoever. But as of yesterday, there's definitely a sprout, and it's getting bigger, and it looks like there might be another one. Mind you, I've been through this before, and I had what I thought was sprouts growing, and they just disappeared the following night, so I don't get too excited. But it'd be nice to be able to grow my own ginger, just a bit of a personal triumph. I think Phuket, Patong Beach in particular, is probably one of the only places to go where you're guaranteed to at least be able to go out at night and have a few drinks and maybe meet up with some fellow travellers or expats or whatever, and have a bit of a social life, which is what I'm looking to do. So it's the best place to go, in effect, really. Even the islands are not looking viable at the moment. They're looking pretty dead. The coast, the Niue's, very quiet. They're just, if you're looking for a relaxed, quiet holiday, yeah, they're great, but I want a little bit more life than that. Don't want to be totally raucous. So it's actually probably a good medium situation at the moment. Patong isn't going to be swamped with tourists, but there'll be enough people to provide some sort of a nightlife, which is what I'm looking for. So, and of course the accommodation's reasonably priced at the moment, because there's a lot of hotels that still haven't reopened because there just aren't the numbers to support the tourist industry. Smaller beaches there they're pretty well shut up at the moment. They're just quiet, and there's just no business at all taking place. So Patong at least has a heartbeat, which is, and like places like Pattaya, yeah, which I've never been to. I've never been to Pattaya once in my life, not once. But they've been hit really hard because the governor, who makes the local laws, the way of enforcing things with the alcohol ban, has been a real hard ass. But they've just recently relaxed that and allowed bars that can provide food and follow the SHA plus guidelines to open, which is basically the COVID guidelines. They're able to open and sell alcohol again. So there's one guy called Mr. Egg, an English guy who runs a place called Le Pub in Pattaya. He's quite informative, and he's quite relieved now because he's finally able to. He's obviously fulfilled those stipulations that are required, and he's able to sell alcohol in his bar because he does provide food. So good for him. It's tough making a living if you're running these places over there. It's tough in Australia. It's been tough everywhere, you know. So I hope all these small businesses can survive. But fingers crossed, this Omicron variant doesn't cause a lot of different states to basically put up the shutters again with lockdowns. I think a lot of the premiers are now a little reticent to do that. They know that rather than being a political positive, it could be a negative. Anastasia Palaszczuk had to reverse one of her decisions about quarantining a whole lot of people who came in close contact on a couple of Virgin flights. There was a hue and cry about it, and she had to reverse her decision and not force them into quarantine. So it looks as though things are changing, thank God, for the better. And the governments are seeing that there is a bit of pushback against some of this extreme response. And that's a good thing. Even Bill Shorten, of all people, he was having a go at premiers. That surprised me. He said they've got to be more consistent with what they're saying across the country. And so it's interesting to see that even people from the other side of the political fence are actually starting to have a few words about the impact of all these disruptions to business. It just can't go on for year on end. There has to be a stop to it. Rather than being just a platitude, we're learning to live with COVID. It has to be reality for things to work out. Anyway, look, that's just a bit of an update. It's quite a pleasant day today. The breeze is nice, I'll give you that. And yeah, so that things could be going worse. A friend of mine, she's actually on an island. She's gone to, I think, Fitzroy Island for a couple of days, so she'll be enjoying the break there. And I might go there myself. She's got a ticket that lasts about a year or something, and gives her unlimited travel, and can take a friend along as well. So I might accompany her on a trip over there one of these days. So I've been hopeless when it comes to checking out local touristy stuff here. I haven't done anything, so it's pathetic. I mean, I have gone to a few places, but it's been years since I've done anything, and I haven't gone out on any of the islands, which is really poor. So I've really got to pull my finger out and do that. Anyway, that's about it for now. Please give me thumbs up, thumbs down, comments, and of course consider subscribing. It's funny. I went down to 699, then went up momentarily to 700 subscribers, then dipped below to 699 again. So at least it hasn't died in the backside. I haven't had a huge drop. And like I say, this is the biggest gap I think I've had in videos for some time, but quite frankly, there hasn't been that much to report, so you don't want to really see my ugly mug too often, so I'll give you a break from that. Anyway, I hope you have a great day and a good weekend, and I'll get back to you before Christmas, that's for sure.